So let's start our work. I'm using rustic wool yarn in 2 threads. It's a bit thicker than indicated in the original design, and a hook 3.5 millimeters. It's one size bigger as well. But let's see. If my square would be bigger than the size that is mentioned in the design, I will be happy. So, round 1, color A. We do a slip knot, and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Then we insert a hook in the first chain, yarn over, and we are pulling yarn through all the loops to form a ring. Here in the middle is a ring. If you would prefer to do a magic ring, you are welcome as well. Then chain 2 and a cluster of 2 double crochets. Actually, this chain 2 and the cluster of 2 double crochets is a cluster of 3 double crochets, the starting cluster. So we do a yarn over, insert a hook in the loop, pulling a loop, yarn over, and pulling through 2 loops. The first double crochet, unfinished one, is done, and we are doing one more. So we have a chain 2, 2 unfinished double crochets, 3 loops on a hook, and we are doing yarn over and pulling through all the loops. Our first cluster of 3 double crochets is done. Then chain 4, 3 and 4. One more cluster of 3 double crochets. We are doing the first unfinished double crochet in a loop, one more, a third one, yarn over and pulling all the yarn through all the loops, chain 4, one more cluster of 3 double crochets, the first unfinished double crochet, a second one, the third one, yarn over and pulling yarn through all the loops. The third cluster is done. Chain 4 and the fourth cluster of 3 double crochets. The first one, the second one, the third one, and then pulling yarn through all the loops and chain 4. The final touch, we are joining with a slip stitch in the on the top of the first cluster. Okay, let's do it. Ready. The first round is done. Then we cut the yarn, secure the end, because the second round is made of the other color. Round 2, color B. We start the row with a standing front post single crochet around any cluster. Let's take this one. Front post single crochet. Done. Then 7 single crochets in chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. 7 single crochets in chain 4. Then again, front post single crochet around the cluster. Done. 7 single crochets in chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Continue repeating. Front post single crochet around the cluster and 7 single crochets in chain 4. See you at the end of the row. Here we are, and a slip stitch in the first front post single crochet. Done. We do not cut the yarn, because round 3 we continue working with the same color. Round 3, color B. Chain 1, it doesn't count as a stitch, and a single stitch in the same stitch. Done. Then we skip next 2 single crochets and we make a cluster of 3 double crochets in the next one. So we skip 2 stitches and a cluster of 3 double crochets. We make the first unfinished double crochet, a second one, the third one, yarn over and pulling yarn through all the loops. Our cluster is done. Chain 2, and we make in the next stitch cluster of 3 double crochets, chain 2, cluster of 3 double crochets. So we start with the first cluster, 1, 2, 3, 3 unfinished double crochets on a hook and pulling through all the loops. The first cluster is done. Chain 2 and one more cluster of 3 double crochets in the same stitch. 1, 2, 3, pulling through all the loops. Our cluster is done. Chain 2, we are doing Again a cluster in the next stitch. It's a bit hidden here, but we won't skip it. So we do the first, the second, and the third on the finished double crochet, and pulling yarn through all the loops. Our cluster is done. Then we skip 2 next stitches and make a single crochet in the next stitch, and it is a front loop single crochet of the previous row. So we made the first repeat. Let's do it once again. We skip 2 stitches and do a cluster of 3 double crochets in the next one. 1, 2, 2, 3, pulling yarn through all the loops, chain 2. And then in the next stitch we do a cluster, 2 chain 2 and 1 more cluster of 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, pulling yarn through all the loops, a cluster is done, chain 2, and 1 more cluster in the same stitch. 1, 2, and 3. Done. Chain 2 and a cluster of 3 double crochets in the next stitch, because we have so many stitches in this one. The next stitch, please don't miss it because it's a bit hidden. Ugh. 1, 2, 3, pulling yarn through all the loops, skipping 2 stitches and a single crochet in the front loop single crochet of the previous row. 1 more repeat is done. See you at the end of the row. Here we are, and a slip stitch in a single crochet, the standing single crochet. Done. We cut the yarn and hide the ends, because the round 4 is made of color A. Round 4, color A. I will be using the 3rd color. We start this round in any corner group of 2 clusters of 3 double crochets and chain 2 between them. It can be any of them. I'll start with this one. Let's take a look. Here we have a corner group made of 2 clusters and chain 2. To start round 4, we do a front post single crochet around the first cluster of the group. Done. 3 single crochets in chain 2. 1, 2, and 3. Front post single crochet around the cluster. Done. 3 single crochets in chain 2. front post single crochet around the next cluster. Here we are. Then chain 2, and we do a big cluster that consists of triple crochets in the next stitch. It's a single crochet from the round 3. So we do the first unfinished triple crochet, a second one, the third one, pulling through all the loops, chain 2, and a front post single crochet around the cluster from round 3. Okay, done. Here we are. 3 single crochets in chain 2. And a front post single crochet around the cluster. The first cluster in a group of 2 corner clusters. Then 3 single crochets in chain 2. Front post single crochet around the next cluster, and again 3 single crochets in chain 2. And front post single crochet around the last cluster of the corner, chain 2, and we do a big cluster of 3 triple crochets. The first one, the second one, the third one, and pulling through all the loops, chain 2, and a single crochet, front loop single crochet around the next cluster. 3 single crochets in chain 2. So we have the half of our square. See you at the end of the row. 4 repetitions are done and a slip stitch in the first front post single crochet. We don't cut the yarn because round 5 is made of the same color. Round 5, color A, continuing with the same color. Chain 1, 2 single crochets in the same stitch. Done. Then in each of 3 stitches, 1 single crochet. 1, 2, 3, and 2 single crochets in the next one. Done. For your future reference, 2 single crochets will always fall in a front post single crochet of round 4. We skip 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, and in chain 2 we do a group of 2 clusters of 3 double crochets and chain 2. Let's start the first cluster of 3 double crochets, 2, 3, done. Chain 2 and the second cluster in the same chain 2. Done. Chain 2. We skip the cluster of 3 triple crochets from round 4 and again a group of 2 clusters of 3 double crochets and chain 2. So we do our first cluster of 3 double crochets, pulling through all the loops, chain 2, and one more cluster in the same chain 2. Skipping 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 single crochets in a front post single crochet from the round 4. Single crochet in the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 2 single crochets in the next one. We skip 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, and are making a group of 2 clusters with chain 2 in chain 2 of round 4. Our first cluster in chain 2, pulling through all the loops, chain 2, one more cluster, 1, 2, 3, pulling through all the loops, chain 2, skipping the cluster of 3 triple crochets from round 4, and a cluster in chain 2, done, chain 2, and a cluster of 3 double crochets. Done. Skipping 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 single crochets, and the next one. So we have 2 corners done. See you at the end of the row. All 4 repeats are done, and we've finished the round with a slip stitch in the first single crochet of the round. We cut the yarn, secure the end, because we'll switch to the next color in round 6.